welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Maz Karimian, Head of Strategy for ustwo. We're here to explore the real impact of generative AI, what it means for businesses, individuals, and society as a whole. We're at a really extraordinary moment where AI is transitioning from something we saw in news headlines and press releases to something that we're using in our day-to-day life. Whether it's helping us to get answers to questions, making decisions, to outright changing the way we work and live, it's really clear that this technology is beginning to reshape the world. But with this transformation comes questions and challenges, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So we have a really distinguished group of panelists here who are on the front lines of this transformation. Each of them brings a really unique perspective on AI's impact and future potential. So please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Kim Bost, Senior Product Design Manager at Anthropic, from Verizon, Dory Butler, Senior Vice President of Customer Experience, and from Meta, Kathryn Han, Senior Product Design Manager focused on generative AI. Excellent. Okay, we don't have a decibel meter, but that was good. I'm going to need you to double it and be quicker on the applause next time I call for it. Let's all take a seat. And what I'll do before getting into the questions is give each of our panelists an opportunity to just introduce themselves and what they do. So Kim, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Kim Bost. Like he said, I am a design manager at Anthropic. What does that mean? I lead the team of user experience designers that are building Claude, which is our user experience for chatting with our models. I also lead the team that is working on our developer tools. So if you're building first-party API solutions, doing prompt evaluation and output, we help make that easy.
Hi, Dory Butler. It's great to see you all. So at Verizon, I lead our customer experience team. So that involves the customer experience strategy, our insights team, as well as our design organization. And my team is responsible for looking across all the end-to-end customer experiences, whether a customer is coming into our app, on the website, into a store, calling us, and ensuring that they have the best experience that they can possibly have.
Kathryn Han, Senior Product Design Manager at Meta. I support a product called Imagine, and if you haven't seen it, it's in your hands for free in any app that you have, and you can imagine any image, now text to video, and you can edit it and also upload your own photos to imagine another iteration of it. So that's essentially it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gang. I'm going to get right into it with a little bit of a question around your personal journeys with generative AI. And where I'm coming from here is that many people kind of have an aha moment where they realize AI's potential. Mine was when I had what I like to call my Ratatouille GPT moment. I listed random stuff that I had in my fridge, and I had ChatGPT, this is back in, I think, December of 2022, generate a recipe that I still use to this day. And in a fun full circle moment, we at ustwo actually recently launched Sproutiful, which is an AI proof of concept app that uses multimodal capabilities to encourage users to eat more plants, prepared plants, not just off the street or in a forest, and improve their gut microbiome. So if you're interested to hear more about Sproutiful, or more importantly, my world-famous date syrup chicken, let's have a chat after the panel. But now I'm interested to hear a little bit about our panelists' personal journeys with generative AI. I'm going to go ahead and begin with you, Dory. Can you recall a moment of realization that this technology was going to be a big deal? And how has your perspective on AI evolved since then?
So I think personally when ChatGPT came out, it was, letting my kids write silly songs, write poems, check out what I could do with things in my fridge. But I think the real aha for me came a bit more professionally when I was actually at Walmart at the time, and sitting in our sort of newly formed council on AI and thinking about all the different things that we could do. I was completely blown away by how quickly the ideas were just flying on how we could apply the technology to make our customers' lives better, to make our employees' lives better, to improve our supply chain, our business practices. Like the magnitude of impacts that it could have across all our different business lines and our different customers, just for me was mind-blowing at the time. So that's probably what I'd say.
Awesome. Kathryn, how about you?
Yeah, similarly for ChatGPT, making just quick prompts that makes my life easier was one aha moment. But the larger aha moment was the fact that people started using that over Google search. Now, if you go to Google search, you're usually you usually surface a page full of all these different sponsor links. You can't even get to the actual piece of information that you were meaning to search for initially. So it takes time, and that's friction. And then not to mention the algorithm that actually feeds into your current biases. But ChatGPT actually removes all that. It almost simplifies to what Google once was. And there's a conversation. So it could provide a difference of opinion. And there could be a back and forth versus a one-way. So that was probably the biggest aha moment. And then from a creative standpoint, the fact that you could generate any image quickly without going to an illustrator or even to a copywriter, you could essentially unlock your inner creative director, which is pretty powerful. And that spans the gamut of those who are super young to those who are super old. And if like statistically from like ages 5 to 8 or 9, there's a burst of creativity that happens where it is fearless. It is without any sort of curiosity, like it's full curiosity without any fear of judgment by society, by your friends, by your peers. And then somewhere along the lines that kind of like falls off as you become a teenager, and you start to filter yourself. And that actually reverses, like these tools actually reverse that and bring you back to a place where you could create creatively, freely, and without bounds, which I think is really an exciting time.
Oh, wait, Kim, how about you?
Yeah, that relates to my aha moment. But before I share it, like I do feel really lucky because I work in user experience and I get to watch people use Claude every day, which is a GPT-like experience. And I see people using the tool for the first time and they're like, help me generate email templates, or, help me create a contract, or help me create a custom fitness plan. And they don't quite realize what's possible until they try. And then once they have that first interaction and they have that first artifact generated and you kind of see the look on their face, you just really start to feel the potential and the potential for us all to benefit from this technology. But to your point about the power of the youth and the power of their creativity, my aha moment was recently watching a video on X or on Twitter of an 8-year-old who was using Cursor, which is like an assistive programming editor. And she used Cursor to build a website so she could chat with Harry Potter. And to have like an 8-year-old young woman having access to that technology and making it so easy, and watching her explore her creativity and refine the look and feel of it and refine how she wanted it to respond is just, again, it's so powerful and so illustrative of the potential behind this technology.
Yeah, we tried to get the 8-year-old who uses Cursor as a panelist tonight, but unfortunately she's deep in talks with Andreessen Horowitz as we speak. So we wish her the very best, and well, that's actually a great segue, Kim. Thank you, because I want to talk about sort of AI in daily life and begin to kind of open out into how we hear that AI is becoming a part of our daily lives, but still feels, a little too integrated, maybe a little invisible. And I'm curious, I'd like to begin with you, Kathryn, if that's okay. What are some ways that you're seeing AI enhance day-to-day activities in your professional or even your personal life?
Yeah, at least from both professional and personal observations, there's two buckets, I would say, two categories. One is the very utilitarian, like how does generative AI help your utilitarian actions be faster, quicker, smarter? And on top of that, you have access to information in very niche subject matters that you wouldn't otherwise have. For example, there was a mom whose son, I read, they could not find the actual disease that he had been diagnosed, but through her own proactive research using generative AI and ChatGPT, she was able to actually find the exact disease and validate that with the doctors, where they themselves couldn't do. So it kind of brings the power back to the person to, in a way, self-advocate or get access to information that they wouldn't otherwise have before. From a productivity standpoint, we can craft the emails. I mean, even before AI was immersive and invisibly through personalization. We know this from like our emails get like fed into Google search links and then and Amazon. So all that's within the same ecosystem. But from a more powerful perspective, it can help generate papers, these research papers and codes. So anyone can actually be a coder, which would previously require like 4+ years of schooling. And so that time of self-education condenses dramatically through this technology, which is wonderful. The second category, if I could go on, is the creativity part. So there's a lot of discussion with copywriters where ChatGPT actually can do their jobs faster. And that's a very, very important discussion to have in the creative field. Similarly, with graphic designers and illustrators, a lot of their artwork is scraped in a way. They're perceived as scraped and without attribution. But then where does that leave those who have spent years building their brands and their styles and themselves to create an audience? Gone already, like, because it's already like anyone can be that illustrator. I think the shift that we're seeing because of this acceleration is the importance of art direction and creative direction. Like, what are the words that you take to describe an image that doesn't exist yet, but you uniquely bring your own perspective to that? And that is a different form of creativity that we're starting to see that shift here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go to Kim, and you're more than welcome to take this question in any direction you like. But you mentioned the artifacts feature within Claude, which was a real unlock for me. If you haven't had a chance to use it, strongly recommend. Artifacts being able to essentially show you I say visualization, that's maybe underselling it, but for example, if you're coding a website, you can sort of see it come to life in a pane next to the text input output box that you're working in, and just that sense of collaboration and real time creation is really powerful. So with that, Kim, I'll sort of pass back to you and ask, how are you seeing daily AI enhance those professional and even personal activities?
Yeah, definitely. Personal activities. Me personally, I used Claude to prepare for this panel. So I have a project with Claude, which just means it's an ongoing kind of space where I have context that's been uploaded about me and my professional working style and my goals. And I uploaded the panel questions and some, documentation from our comms team, and just did a little lightweight preparation. I've also used Claude personally to make a custom quiz to help me learn Spanish before my vacation. So I was going hiking, I was eating pinchos, I was, going to be drinking wine. And so I just created like a custom interface very easily. It took me 10 minutes, not even, so that I, could be conversational, not even, but I could, get by. In a professional context, we see people using Claude in all sorts of ways. It's really good at data analysis, really good at coding, as you mentioned, really good at looking at large corpuses of data and finding themes. So you see that in like the healthcare sector, like we see companies like Pfizer using Claude to look across, large corpuses of research and data to help identify treatment plans sooner. We see companies like Bridgewater using Claude as a tool for junior analysts to help them build confidence in their decision making. So again, like really just like the tip of the iceberg stuff. And I think that what's so exciting about this is it is very customizable, right, to a given context, to a given organization or a company or an individual, and extensible. So it can, be valuable in sort of any different vertical.
Outstanding, yeah. And I want to congratulate you despite your Claude preparation. You sound very human. So that's
Thank you.
So the big win.
Certainly.
Yeah, Dory, how about you? Love to hear about how you're seeing AI impact professional activities, personal activities, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say personally similar to you all, primarily for tasks, execution of things like that. You need to write a thank you note for something. Oh, I could quickly just draft one up very much using a GPT. So I'd say probably more task utilization, that type of thing personally. And then professionally, I would say Verizon has taken we've been using AI for over a decade, but it was more in some of the ways that you were discussing before we had the generative AI tools. Now that we've taken the strategic approach of starting with wanting to reduce the cognitive load off our associates and employees so that they can better serve and help our customers. We obviously will have tools, and we do have things that are more customer facing, but we've prioritized the employee experience, which translates into ultimately a better customer experience. So things like you were talking about that Claude can do, we've done internally of, taking, you normally, if you call a customer service rep, you're having a problem with, say, your phone plan or your phone bill, that rep might say, okay, could you hold on a second? And they put you on hold, and then they go back through a bunch of documents trying to figure out how to answer your question, right? Because they can't keep all of that information about every different variation of a customer, different plans, different phones, you name it, in their head, right? And it's also a job that might have a lot of turnover. So with training of associates, like you need tools that let them reduce that cognitive load. So we've created tools where they can go in and it can just, serve up what the customer needs based on that customer's need at that exact moment and really personalize that experience and speed up that phone call. So we've drastically reduced the time that customers are spending dealing with issues because our customer service reps can better serve them. So it's just one example of something we're doing, but it's an application that's impacting customers' daily lives and certainly the employees' daily lives, because they're much happier on the job because they're able to better serve and more easily answer customers' questions.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually wanted to kind of continue on that theme. Are you seeing sort of changes in customer expectations when it comes to that kind of AI-assisted service? A lot of folks, I think, have this sense of bots or chatbots being something of a step down, but what you're describing sounds like more turbocharging what employees are able to do and saving them the kind of very highly manual tasks. How are you seeing that impact folks' expectations, both employees, it sounds like, as well as customers?
Yeah, to me, many of you are from customer businesses, right? The expectations of customers, to me, are just rapidly intensifying and continuing, and they probably will continue to grow all the time, right? So to me, if you're providing an incredible experience, you're helping resolve issues for them, and you're personalizing the experience, that's what they expect. Can we use generative AI to do that more easily and give them a better experience? I think we can. So I don't know that it's their expectations around how we use AI tools. I think it's their expectations around the experience and the products and services they're provided. And if we can use the AI to improve that, then that's absolutely what we want to be doing. So that's probably what I think.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted to give Kim a sort of an option to answer that question. I'd love to hear, from the perspective of Anthropic in your daily life. Obviously we've talked about artifacts and what you're rolling out as far as enabling people to create, to be assisted, etc. There's a real funny kind of trend going on in AI where some kind of like world-shattering development will drop, and by the end of the day, we're like, okay, but what's next? So I'm really curious, how are you, if you could provide any reflections on, customers that you work with, be they enterprise or maybe even internal customers, how are expectations around AI changing as people use the models and use the features that you all are building on top of them? How are you seeing that kind of expectations evolution play out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that's obviously very top of mind for us. We're working in a space of emerging technology, and as a designer in the space, it kind of works against how I've been trained in a way, because you are always user needs first, right? You are always trying to not be a solution in search of a problem. But in emerging technology, the technology is always going to come first. And so a big role of design is translating these powerful capabilities to end users, and to making that understandable to end users and valuable to end users. So actually, things like artifacts and things like these cutting edge features that we develop, while very powerful, when you look at a general audience, are still kind of in the expert level domain. So a lot of the work that we do is trying to make it more accessible to a broader audience. And help the general public, I think, be more comfortable with AI and sort of have a lower barrier to entry so that they can have that aha moment sooner.
Great. Yeah. I'm happy to pick up on that. But Kathryn, did you want to add anything to that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So with regards to the lower barrier of entry, what we found in the beginning is with prompt engineering, a lot of people couldn't get over that hurdle because they're faced with they don't understand syntax or even the principles of coding to even get over that hurdle to start creating. But with Imagine, you could literally just imagine and use text to whatever image. So imagine me in a space suit riding a horse, with the stars going over them. It's like going back to that place where, there's no guardrails to start your imagination. There is where Imagine doesn't require prompt engineering. You could literally just text to that image, and just a couple of weeks ago, you can now text to movies with Movie Gen that we released in our research paper. So you could see that that lower barrier to entry means that everyone can fully express themselves and the inner seeds of creativity. And we start to see that in entertainment and even in the creative realm where you don't need so many revisions to get to the idea that you're trying to express or illustrate anymore. Using generative AI and Imagine and Meta AI, you could be able to get there 80% of the way much faster and get to a decision or a pivot or just more clarity because you have that at your fingertips. So I think that's pretty powerful because it's powerful for businesses in terms of productivity. It's also very, very valuable for people, especially creators who want to be able to learn AI without being a prompt engineer.
Yeah, great. I wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to pick up on something, maybe start back with you, Kim. You mentioned this idea of it's still a little bit the power users who are those first adopters, those first experimenters with those more cutting edge, but ironically much more accessible features and capabilities. I'd love to understand from all three of you, but maybe starting with you, Kim, how do you think about in practice, making AI features more accessible, driving adoption, maybe overcoming some skepticism, not just kind of unawareness, but outright skepticism? I'm curious how you all approach making it more accessible in general.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a lot of what we think about. And I think what all of us think about when it comes to, I think, adoption, you do have these hurdles around trust, which is a lot of what you don't control, right? That's kind of like the public narrative. And, there are many things that Anthropic does to improve trust, which I'm happy to talk a little bit about. But then on the user experience side, what we can control and help is understanding, right? And so a lot of what you were talking about, Kathryn, when you're using like an Imagine tool or using something like Claude, that sort of cold start problem is really intimidating. But also is what I think represents the possibility of, right? Because you don't want to sort of arbitrarily limit someone's imagination or limit kind of the experience that they could have. We often talk about this experience as being a non-deterministic experience, meaning that it's so powerful and people can do so much with this tool. The outcomes are almost truly like limitless. So really thinking about giving people like clear jumping off points, almost like nothing novel there. But another saying that we have on the team is show, don't tell, right? Because this technology can be so personal, so catered to your use case, offering you something like a template really undermines it, shortchanges it. So how do we try to anticipate or understand or just know more about you and what your goals are so that we can visualize the different types of outcomes or different types of artifacts or different types of experiences that you might have? And really think of it, to your point, around like turns and iterations, like think of it as a collaborator. It's not just a tool. It is really like an ally that is someone or that is trying to help you do your work.
Amazing. Yeah, I wanted to turn to you, Dory, and talk about in a little bit more depth. You touched on it previously, but Verizon's efforts in this space and how you think about driving adoption, among employees who are maybe not coming at it from a particularly kind of AI aware or AI forward standpoint. How do you think about driving adoption? What kinds of hurdles or obstacles have you faced, and how have you tried to overcome those so far?
Yeah. So just like a customer and another customer base, the employees, and these are primarily the employees answering the phones and in the stores serving our customers that are using the tools right now. You have your early adopters who jump in and are like, let me have it. I want to learn everything about it. And then you have those users who are a little more, I'm a little more cautious. I'm not sure. I kind of like how I do my job. So we have that widespread as well. What I'd say is we've been really floored by how excited and engaged the employees have been in using the tools, and the adoption and has actually scaled much more quickly than we anticipated across a variety of different tools that we've released to our employees. The other thing that I'd say is we've looked at what segments of employees are more ready for them or find more usage out of them, right? So if you're brand new and you don't know and don't have all the knowledge around our products and services and how things works, and you're onboarding, they're relying more heavily on those tools. Our much more tenured employees, they have a lot more knowledge. They don't need to rely on the tools quite as much. So we're learning how to bring them in and help them find value with it too. The other thing that we've done that's been incredibly valuable is we bring those employees along with us in the product development process. So they're very much involved in testing, giving us input as we refine the tools before we release them, and then continuing to enhance them based on their feedback. So that's been a really successful strategy for us also.
Excellent. Yeah. Kathryn, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, adoption, barriers to it, and how you've thought about overcoming it, as an organization, and obviously as a really giant platform that reaches even more people than Verizon, which is very few companies can say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mark and other C-suite leaders have talked about this in the past, that we've gone through regulation and global regulatory requirements. We've been through Congress. We know what it means to be compliant, and also gone through compliance with the Digital Markets Act. And that is great. I mean, it's great because AI is so nascent and really needs to be thoughtfully done, like measure twice, cut once approach, especially because it can provide access to many, many age groups. So how can we make that safe? How can we make it trustworthy? And it comes through transparency and also understanding, not only from a global perspective, but even from a state level perspective, what are the pain points that communities have, from parents to schools to government officials who are, that's sort of the scale at which we think, and from a macro and micro level. A lot of it is just coming from experience, from a company level, and we have annual trainings of what we need to comply with, so that we don't forget what we agreed with in terms of the Federal Trade Commission.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really great theme around safety and reliability, and the fact that you all mentioned the word safety has, like the Manchurian Candidate, triggered another plug from me for us two's work. So in our ongoing work with organizations like the Cancer Awareness Trust in the UK, helping build day-to-day knowledge and helping build a day-to-day knowledge and guidance platform for cancer patients, safety and reliability has been really top of our minds for very obvious reasons. So turning to you, Kim, obviously Anthropic really emphasizes, safe and reliable AI. I'd love for you to sort of unpack what that means in practice.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I'm a user experience expert. I am not an engineer or a researcher, but I think safe and reliable for us is really, I think about understanding, right? Like you understand what's happening. We talk a lot about, AI is human in the loop, right? So you understand what's happening. You can correct or make iterations if you need to. I think the reliable and trust piece comes into play. Like it's reliable because it meets my expectations reliably, repeatably. Like I trust the output that I'm getting, things like that.
Excellent. Yeah. I want to turn to you, Dory, thinking about, brand perception, but also differentiation. A lot of tools in the AI space to date have had a little bit of a copycat feel. There've been a lot of instances of chatbots that are sort of slapped on top of knowledge bases that have had somewhat middling and differing results. So I'm really curious, when you think about providing the kind of differentiating service that really matches the Verizon brand promise, how have you thought about differentiating yourselves in customer service and in other spaces through AI?
Yeah, so I'd say we very deliberately did not take the approach of saying, let's just throw a chatbot on, let the chatbot help you find the best phone you can find. There's obviously value in those tools in different industries and in different areas of experiences. But we leaned heavily, as I said, into let's leverage the tools so that our associates and our front line can make the experience better for the customer. And I think that that's been really, really the right approach for us and for continuing to differentiate against the competition, because it lets us focus on what we foundationally believe is the most important thing to our customer, which is that they're receiving the best experience they can, the best product they can. If they have an issue, that we're able to quickly resolve it and help them. That builds trust, that builds loyalty. And then from there, you can do more interesting things. You can try out new technologies, and customers are more forgiving of sort of learning into some new technologies and new ways of either shopping or being serviced or using your products, because you've built that foundational trust. So that's where we've started, and I think that's where we'll continue, is to very much focus on providing that right experience and then building on that over time.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted to switch gears a little bit to kind of how AI is showing up, and thinking a little bit about how form factors, devices might be influencing that. So I'll sort of open this out to anybody who wants to grab it. But AI tools and systems, of course, are cropping up across a range of devices. We've had the text generator input-output piece, and we're really seeing evolutions beyond that. And we ourselves, as us too, we've been working with a really pioneering company in the brain-computer interface space to enable folks with upper limb paralysis to control the computer more effectively and expressively using only their thoughts. So I'm curious, when you look at AI and how it's showing up across different form factors, how do you think that form factor, if at all, influences how AI is showing up, should show up? I'm curious whether there are any thoughts from any of you.
I could speak to that. Show of hands, how many have Ray-Ban Ray-Bans? Few, yes. Okay, so you kind of understand, actually you viscerally understand the value of AI in this form factor, where you can be present in the moment and you could still get the information you're looking for out of your curiosity, and it actually adds value to that very micro moment in your life, right? So that's just like one use case, but in a more other use cases in terms of health, those who are visually impaired can actually use it as a tool to give them sight when they lack that through the Ray-Bans. So I think those are just like two main use cases, but on a day-to-day, it's sort of like, hey, Meta, look at this tree. What family is this from? And you kind of bring more education without having to look on your phone or even go to the desktop, which feels so archaic in this day and age of mobility. So it's just an area that will develop further, obviously, from public reports.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just an area that's going to continue to mature the same way that 2 years ago it was all about the chatbot, and that was the only thing we knew was typed into a box. And now, there's so much more voice, there's so many more different applications. So I think this is one that's going to continue to really take off over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I would agree. Just to speculate things that I am excited about. I'm really excited about voice input personally. I'm someone who is constantly on my phone using voice input for everything from like sending messages to friends and family and colleague to, just journaling and recording my own thoughts. And so I think there's a ton of potential there. And I think there's also a ton of potential for what this technology unlocks in terms of mobility and in terms of kind of like freeing us from browser windows and desktop software applications. As it becomes more and more capable, I think we're just going to be working in completely transformative ways.
Yeah, I think the points that you all are making around sort of that frictionlessness and how it's not about going to a place to use an AI tool or service is really powerful, in that kind of interweaving into pre-existing behaviors, sort of the elevation of those behaviors, whether on the part of employees in a store or in a call center, or folks in their day-to-day life, in a document, in a workflow, in a meeting. Really powerful, and sort of freeing up that space, that time to focus on the human versus digging through files or what have you. So on that note, I wanted to speak to a sort of an area of AI that we as a product studio have found really interesting, which is emotive AI. It's sort of a really interesting frontier to us. It's essentially around this idea that AI tools and systems can be emotionally sensitive insofar as they can sort of understand, pick up on emotion, but also respond in kind and provide, for example, kind of coaching services or other types of outputs that feel really emotionally resonant for users. So I'd really love to understand maybe some opportunities and challenges to businesses looking to integrate more emotionally sensitive AI, perhaps in the context of voice, perhaps in the context of customer service applications. What might be some opportunities and challenges for that more emotionally sensitive, emotionally resonant AI? And I'll sort of toss that up for anyone to grab the bouquet.
Well, I think a very clear use case is in the customer service realm, because it's such a stressful role to begin with when day in and day out you receive complaints from customers all day. And there's never a thank you. It's more like, solve my problem now or yesterday. And there's a lot of anger behind it. But with the emotive AI, there's a patience that's incorporated. There's a lack of judgment, and there's a deep empathy, which it's really hard when you're receiving that emotional force.
Yep.
That I feel like the emotive AI can certainly help in that way.
Yeah, and it's huge focus, and I think we've taken a very human in the loop approach, which allows us to leverage the technology to understand the sentiment, understand what we're hearing, and then use that to improve the experience in the moment or even later on in coaching, right? So we'll often, be able to leverage back what the sentiment analysis, what we heard, and what that customer was sort of expressing to us, to then train and help customer service reps or reps in the store be able to improve how they serve that customer and help them understand what they were hearing and experiencing. So I think it's incredibly important to make it a more empathetic experience. And I think it's just going to continue to improve. I do believe, at least for a long time, we're going to have human in the loop. We're going to be, taking an approach of ensuring that it's not, the human is still playing the human role. And I also believe the more we have the technology continue to advance, the more important that personalization and that personal aspect of interacting with a customer or with another human is just going to continue to stay really, really important.
Yeah, I'm just building off of what my fellow panelists have said, but kind of spitballing here around emotional state. I think what's really exciting is you can have many different emotional contexts in the same way that a human has very many different emotional contexts. And so, in the case of like coaching a customer support agent, that can become personalized and tailored and authentic to them as individuals. And it's just another example of, the potential of this technology and why it's so exciting, because you can really respond to the emotional state of your team or the emotional state of different departments or just the emotional state of many different contexts, and you're not limited to just one.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one more thing with AI Studio. We are actually creating AI characters or AI assistants to cover all the different topics that they wouldn't otherwise want to share. That it could be an uncomfortable topic or an intimate topic, but questions that they would want to ask someone but may be afraid of judgment by their friends or relatives or peers. They can actually do that with an AI character. And not only can you make one area, you can make many. It could be a stylist or your own coach or a cheerleader or a planner, but you have like many assistants that you could actually create and cater and tailor to your personal needs on a day-to-day basis too.
Great. Yeah, That's a really great jumping off point to a theme that I want to touch on, which is sort of what so far has sort of surprised us about AI, its progress, its adoption, and so forth. And sort of picking up on what you were saying there, Kathryn, we did work with Inflection on their emotionally intelligent assistant Pi. And what's really interesting about Pi and the way that people used it is that, as Kim was getting to earlier on, you can kind of see that that sort of almost that fear of the blank page and that cold start problem, where when we sort of suggested that people do functional things with the help of Pi, which it was very capable of doing, making lists, making plans, so on and so forth, there was just an aspect of that terror, the paralysis of the blinking cursor set in. By contrast, when we began to explore more kind of pre-prompts, if you will, around more conversational or even kind of borderline emotionally assistive tasks, we saw usage just kind of really, really deepen, and folks begin to use AI in a very kind of free and ready way. And it makes me think about, or rather the surprise that it underscored for me was almost as emotion as a way into adoption with AI, that the need to set a clear and sympathetic and sensitive role for the AI is really almost like a meta barrier before the functional adoption, before the use in a kind of task or utility-based context. So with that, I'd like to open back out to the panel as far as, maybe something that surprised you, that seemed a little counterintuitive about the way that AI tools and systems have been adopted, experimented with, or approached so far. And I'll open that to anybody who wants to take it.
I'll jump in. We touched on this earlier, but I think just how accessible and approachable something so incredibly complex is. And because of that, how quickly it's scaled and people have just leaned in to try it out and just, whether it's in a fun way or in a much more professional way. I think it's unique in that respect compared to other introductions of technology that have had maybe a steeper learning curve or more of a need to advance and mature before broad population found value in them.
I think one thing that was surprising to me is the first impression people have of generative AI or AI in general is like deep fakes. That's what they think top of mind. And I think that's, really promoted by the things that are written. And I think there's this other side of AI that could be a very useful tool, both personally, professionally, and creatively, that hasn't been more broadly talked about and celebrated. I think it's fair. Like the deepfakes are a real thing and should be, addressed and guardrailed, incredibly so, because of the dangers it provides. But if we can find these other facets where it can actually be helpful for humanity, I think that would go a long way. The other thing I'm surprised by is just because people are first blocked by that first impression, there's a lack of curiosity or self-education to find more about how that could be useful for themselves and their lives. And so how can we get over that, again, cold start problem where what you hear in the media is one thing, but if one does a lot of the research there, and there's so many tools available now, like what can really serve one's purpose or one's business's purposes to increase productivity or unlock creativity and self-expression.
Yeah, it does remind me of that aha moment when you overcome that sort of first-time experience and you start to see the personal value for the first time. And I love that story about, going into sort of more emotional contexts and how that kind of deepens engagement. It makes me think about personalization and understanding. And, going back to my example of like prepping for the panel, I have a project with Claude, and I have trained Claude to understand me as a design leader and understand my strengths and the things that I'm working on. And it has really, I think, deepened the value that I am getting from the tool. So I really think that we're just scratching the surface here. I think, these things are going to get easier and easier and easier over time. And it does make me think about this transformation that we're all going through in seeing this through a different lens. Like this, this isn't just a tool. This is really a collaborator for me. This is really a coach for me.
Absolutely, great. So yes, the frantic sneezing signals that we're nearing the end of our time, and bless you, by the way. I want to ask one final question, and it's a little bit of a softball, but since we've been talking about, the present of AI and how it's impacting our daily lives, both professionally, personally today, I'd like to give you all a moment to kind of look to the future and sort of share what excites you about what lies ahead within, privacy compliance, but what are you most excited for, looking forward for, in terms of AI capabilities and adoption?
I'm just really excited for the fact that anyone can be a creator now. Like, you don't need to pay thousands of dollars to a studio, to an agency. You could actually do that iteration yourself, and kind of get to the point where you know what you're going to ask for those who are professionals in that realm. The other thing is that people think it might replace their jobs. It's more about adaptation. Those who know how to leverage the tools can get to that outcome faster. I think that's an important distinction, and kind of removes the fear of like, oh, AI is going to replace my job completely when it can create apps. No, it really requires the art direction and creative direction and product thinking to get to that ideal outcome. So it's another tool in your set of parts, in addition to all the tools that are out there and what we've grown up with Adobe, for instance, for our creative solutions. So the other thing I'm really excited about is the fact that there is this new form of creation where it is more collaborative, to Kim's point. And I mean, we just saw Adobe announce yesterday with Project, was a concept. It's basically storyboarding. So how can people start to collaborate creatively together when it used to be a very insular, only for the star, leader or person who had the longest tenure? It kind of democratizes that creative process altogether, which is what I'm really excited about.
I love that. I would say the area I'm most excited about is one I have no personal or professional knowledge in whatsoever. But I am really excited with where the technology can help us to democratize affordable healthcare and education on a broad scale, like across the globe. Again, not something I have any education in, but I think it's going to add tremendous value to so many people across not just our country, but the world.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And yeah, I am very, very hopeful for the future. We're just in the beginning stages. We have technology that is helping us complete tasks that used to take an hour or a day. We believe that it's going to scale to help tasks that would take weeks or months, that it will be as smart as or smarter than, the leading human expert in the world. And I think that's just going to unlock so much for us. Yeah, like in healthcare and socioeconomic policy. And just to make it really tangible as a user experience person, like I think it's going to be really, really freeing for us. And like I said, we'll be working in completely different ways.
Excellent. Well, excellent answers, excellent panelists. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for listening.